Hi, and welcome back to our channel. Today we'll be delving into a question many of you have been asking about. Is cassava flour gluten-free? Finding the right gluten-free flour is something like dating. You try one, it looks promising, and then disappointment. Almond flour makes your bread dense. Coconut flour, it dries out everything. Rice flour, well, kind of gritty, bland, and fragile. But then someone introduces you to cassava flour. It looks like wheat, it bakes almost like wheat, and it's naturally gluten free. So here's the big question. Could this be the one? Over the next few minutes, we are going to explore cassava flour in depth. What is it? Why is it gluten free? And how does it compare nutritionally? And how are people using it? What to look out for? And why is it becoming one of the most popular gluten-free flours in kitchens around the world? Imagine you're from Nigeria, watching a farmer pull thick cassava roots from the ground, or in the Brazilian Amazon, where it's grated and roasted into farine, or in our homeland Trinidad, where it becomes delicious cassava pone, a sweet cake baked with coconut and spices. This root has been a staple for thousands of years. How does cassava compare with sweet potato? Let's delve in. Let me ask you something. When you think of root vegetables, what comes to mind first? For most of us, it's potatoes, mashed, fried, roasted, comforting, yes? Maybe even sweet potatoes, especially around the holidays. But what about cassava? Cassava is a root crop eaten by 500 million people worldwide. Yet in North America, Europe, as well as other parts of the world, it's still a mystery ingredient. Today we are putting cassava side by side with potato and the sweet potato. And you might be surprised just how different they are. Potato is native to the Andes. It was spread worldwide and beloved for its versatility. Sweet potato, on the other hand, is native to Central and South America. It's rich in beta carotene and is linked to the superfood status. Cassava is native to South America, a survival crop, drought resistant, and grows in poor soils, and is the backbone of diets in Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. Potatoes feel like comfort. Sweet potatoes feel like wellness, but cassava feels like resilience. Potato is moderate in carbs. It has some vitamin C, potassium, and can spike your blood sugar depending on the preparation. Sweet potato is high in fiber, rich in beta carotene, which is a vitamin A precursor, often called a diabetic-friendly carb. Cassava, on the other hand, is very high in carbs. It has some fiber, it is gluten-free, but not nutrient-dense compared to sweet potato. If you're planning dinner, which matters more to you? Energy, nutrients, or blood sugar control? For quick energy, probably you could try cassava or potato. For nutrients and fiber, try sweet potato. But for gluten-free baking, the winner is cassava. Here's the catch. Cassava must be processed properly. Raw cassava contains compounds that can be very toxic to the body. But don't worry, peeling and boiling or fermenting them the proper way removes all of the toxins. But it's not a root you just bite in like raw and eat, just like a carrot. In the kitchen, you can use potatoes in its fried form, mashed. Sweet potatoes, you can use it to make pies, casseroles, roasted sides. Health halo in the wellness world. Cassava can be used to make bread, chips, puddings, flour for gluten-free baking, or tapioca pearls. In Nigeria, it's often used as gari and fufu, and with everyday staples. In the Caribbean, it's often used with cassava pone and one of my favorites, cassava bread. So here's the big takeaway. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, and cassava may share the root vegetable label, but they tell three different stories. Potatoes bring comfort, sweet potatoes bring nourishment, and cassava brings resilience and adaptability. Next time you're in a market, ask yourself, what do I need from my root today? A warm hug, a nutrient boost, or gluten-free powerhouse? And if this conversation sparked curiosity, try cooking with cassava this week. Compare it to potatoes already in your pantry, because sometimes a new ingredient opens up a whole new way of seeing food. Did you know that the Food and Agriculture Association states that cassava feeds over 500 million people daily? How would that change your cooking if the same root that sustains 500 million people could give you a gluten-free flour that works almost like wheat? So let's look at it a little bit deeper. Difference between cassava flour and tapioca starch. Let me ask you something. When you see cassava flour and tapioca starch on the grocery shelf, do you assume that they are the same thing? Probably not. You wouldn't be alone. Most people do. But here's the truth. They are both from the same plant, yet they behave completely differently in your kitchen. And knowing the difference could mean the success or failure of your next gluten-free recipe. Today, let's dive into that question. What really separates cassava flour from tapioca starch? Let's do a quick background. Cassava roots, also called yuca or manioc, is a staple crop in Africa, Asia, and South America, as well as the Caribbean. In Trinidad, cassava can be baked, can be fried, it can be turned into bread. In Brazil, it's the backbone of their national cooking. This is not a trendy new superfood. It's a plant that has sustained communities for centuries. Let's look at how cassava flour compares with tapioca starch. Here's the crux. Cassava flour is made from the whole root. The root is peeled, dried, and ground into a soft, fine flour. That means you get all of the starch and the fiber. Tapioca starch, on the other hand, is like the refined white sugar of the cassava world. It's just the extracted starch, washed, peeled, pressed, and dried without the fiber, without the complexity. Cassava flour is heavier, slightly nutty flavored, more nutritious, and acts closer to wheat flour. Tapioca starch is lighter, bland, pure starch, used mainly for thickening and chewy textures. So if you're baking a gluten-free bread, what would you want? Structure and nutrition, or just a stretchy chew? That's the choice cassava and tapioca puts into your hands. So let's look at an example. Try substituting cassava flour on a 1-to-1 ratio with wheat flour in pancakes. They'll hold together, taste rich, and be naturally gluten-free. Example, add a tapioca starch to cheese bread, and you'll get that signature stretch. But try making a loaf with only tapioca starch. You'll end up with a gummy mess. Many gluten-free bakers blend them together, cassava for body and tapioca for elasticity. If you use them interchangeably without knowing the difference, your recipe may flop. That's why so many people give up on gluten-free baking too early. Let's look at cassava flour for its nutritional benefits. Cassava flour has a high fiber content, which often can slow down blood sugar spikes. It has some vitamins and minerals. It's heavier on the carbs than almond or coconut flour. Tapioca starch, on the other hand, is almost pure carbs, very little fiber or nutrition, and works more like cornstarch. If you're managing your blood sugar, cassava flour is the safer bet. If you just need a thickener for soup, tapioca starch gets the job done. So, a cassava flour and tapioca starch the same? Not at all. One gives you the whole root and the other just the starch. One is hearty and versatile, the other is a light and specific. Here's my challenge for you. This week, try one recipe with cassava flour and the other one with tapioca starch. Notice the difference. Share your results with me. I'd love to hear how it turned out for you. For cassava flour, the method of processing is very simple. Firstly, the whole root is peeled, it's dried, and then ground via milling into a fine powder. It's important to note that when we are processing fresh cassava, that there is a very dangerous compound called cyanide at the base of the skin. These compounds in raw cassava have to be removed when peeling, but I reassure you that proper processing makes the flour safe. Customers that have used Raymond's Foods cassava flour in particular have used it in many recipes, including breads, cassava dumplings and saltfish, as well as cassava cakes. And trust me, they have all tasted very delicious. So then, is cassava flour gluten-free? There's only one clear, confident response to this question. Yes, it is 100% gluten-free. Cassava flour behaves most like wheat flour. It's a neutral flavor, fine texture. It can be compared with almond and coconut as well as rice flours. If you had to bake a birthday cake gluten-free, would you trust almond flour, coconut flour, or cassava flour to get you to the closest wheat original? That's the difference and the choice cassava gives you. We have had many testimonials from persons who suffered from celiac disease, as well as those who may have been gluten intolerant or had allergies, and they have told us how delicious and how versatile cassava flour has been used in many of their baking recipes. Cassava flour is also low in calories, rich in fiber and vitamin C. It's nut-free, grain-free, and allergen-friendly. So let's look at some practical cooking advice when using cassava flour. Cassava's ability to act as on a one-to-one ratio as a wheat replacement has many benefits. Basically, you have to weigh your flour first, adjust the liquids because cassava flour absorbs a lot of liquid, and combine it with other gluten-free flours. Cassava tortillas can be made, with cassava flour, and they often come out very soft and flexible. You can also use cassava flour with flatbread or pizza crust, which gives you a very crispy edges as well as a chewy center. It can be used with pancakes as well, make very fluffy and delicious pancakes. It can be used to make moist cookies and brownies, as well as cassava pone and other delicious recipes using cassava flour. Do you want cassava to simply mimic wheat flour, or do you just want to explore the cultural recipes where it shines on its own terms? It's important to know that cassava flour is very versatile. As we said, it can be used to make many recipes and can be used to replace wheat flour on a 1-to-1 ratio. There are many persons who should try cassava flour. Persons who have celiac disease or have gluten intolerance. You can also consider persons or parents looking for an allergy-safe recipes for their children, persons who are paleo or vegan or Whole30 eaters, foodies curious about African, Caribbean, or South American cuisine, persons looking on the gluten-free aisle, cassava flour is sitting right next to the almond and coconut flours. It's important that we remind that it is safe, right, to use, and moderation should be used because it's a heavy carb. Why not try one of our cassava flour recipes this week using Ramos Foods cassava flour? Maybe you could try tortillas, maybe cookies, but let it earn its place in your kitchen. And when you do, share your story with us. I want to hear how cassava flour changes your cooking. To learn more, call us at 753-4823 and check the show notes to find out which supermarket you can pick up your favorite pack today.